Competence in the clinical skill of sterile dressing change is demonstrated by uploading one video for review by the course instructor. The clinical requirements for this video includes real-time continuous audio and video throughout the clip with no evidence of editing. Additionally, the video uploaded must be accompanied by a signed consent form that includes consent for the student to appear on video. A sample consent form is provided in the sterile dressing change module. The student will introduce him or herself. It is not essential for a clinical supervisor to be present for this non-invasive clinical procedure on a simulation model. The student will explain the procedure for sterile dressing change and the steps involved as if the simulation model were a patient listening. For example, "Hello, my name is Joseph. I'm one of the medical assistants here in the clinic today. Can you tell me your name and date of birth?" "Thank you. As you probably know, your provider has requested that we perform a wet to dry dressing change. I will first clean my hands, put on clean gloves, and remove your old dressing and examine it for purulent, bloody, or unexpected discharge, or foul odor. If either is noted, I will save the dressing for examination by your provider and will not proceed with your dressing change until your provider has examined the wound. In the absence of odor or discharge, I will proceed to open my sterile supplies, establish a sterile field, don sterile gloves, apply a wet dressing to your wound, cover it with a dry dressing, time, date, and initial your dressing, and chart the dressing change in your record. Any questions? If not, with your permission, I will proceed. The medical assistant should demonstrate knowledge of infection control standards in patient care by washing hands before and after patient contact and demonstrating the effective use of both clean gloves and sterile gloves in patient care when clinically indicated. For the clinical task of demonstration of a sterile dressing change, the medical assistant should wash hands with soap and water or use a hand sanitizer. The use of clean, non-sterile gloves is required for the removal of the old dressing. The soiled gloves are used to safely dispose of the soiled used dressing. This task involves the use of multiple pieces of sterile equipment after putting on sterile gloves using sterile dressing technique. It is important for the student to demonstrate his or her knowledge that it takes time for germs to die, both with hand washing and hand sanitization. Don't rush through these important basic skills. While the medical assistant is washing hands, it is a good time to summarize the procedure and inquire if the patient has any questions or concerns. After washing hands, the medical assistant with clean gloves removes the old dressing and examines it for foul odor or unexpected discharge. In the absence of odor or discharge to the dressing or wound, the medical assistant disposes of the dressing using the soiled gloves that he or she is now wearing. With clean, bare hands, the medical assistant opens the sterile packages for the supplies to be used in the wet to dry dressing change. These include sterile water, 4x4 boat, and a 4x6 dry dressing. The sterile water is poured into the 4x4 boat. Sterile gloves are opened and a sterile field is established using the wrapping from the sterile gloves. A sterile tongue depressor is opened onto the field created by the wrapper from the sterile gloves. The sterile gloves are now put on using sterile technique. One sterile, wet 4x4 is removed from the boat and unwound and layered into one hand. The sterile tongue depressor is used to place the wet 4x4 cotton gauze into the open wound. Once the bed of the wound is well covered by the wet 4x4 cotton dressing, the sterile dry dressing is retrieved from its sterile package. It is unfolded and placed with the adhesive borders outside of the wound. Once the wound is covered, the medical assistant removes his or her gloves and labels the external surface of the dry dressing with the date, time, and his or her initials. The medical assistant cleans his or her hands and proceeds to chart the dressing change. For example, dressing change, old dressing removed, wound bed and margins clean without evidence of odor or discharge. Using sterile technique, the wound bed is packed with wet 4x4 cotton gauze and a dry dressing applied to cover the wound margins. The procedure was well tolerated without report of discomfort. Signed, John Smith, CMA, February 14, 2018, 3:30 p.m.